Greetings, YouTube. I was listening to NPR today, and they were doing a report about the COVID-19 vaccines that are in the pipeline. We have 3 in the U.S., and they also mentioned there's one in Russia that's being launched. Though that one is not really known how well what's going to work because they haven't done the same kind of research and they're not as forthcoming. But the ones in the U.S. are really looking solid, like 90+% protection. That's unbelievable. Um, and I think it's very important that everybody queue up and take their vaccine when it becomes available to you. But one of the things that the report I was listening to was talking about is how sometimes there are communities in America that are not as accepting of medical information and vaccines and medical research as they should be. And no, I'm not talking about the anti-vaxxers. I'm talking about groups that in American history have been traditionally exploited in the name of medical research. And I'm talking about the Black community. And they are very wary in many ways of new research and medical technology and vaccines because they should be, because it has been a long tradition in America to abuse and exploit Black people in the name of medical science. What do I mean by that? Well, of course, the most famous case I think everybody's heard about is the Tuskegee experiment, where they literally gave Black soldiers, Black servicemen, venereal diseases intentionally, and then sat back and watched what happened to them, all the while telling them they had been given a vaccine to protect them from said venereal disease. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I know of a case, like the name I can't or not remember at this point, of a doctor in the South during the antebellum era who was experimenting on slaves to the extent of breaking their legs and setting them at right angles to see if the bones would knit. They do. And now you have a leg that's shaped like this. In fact, his experiments were so horrendous, so horrific, something out of the Saw movies or torture porn, that he was actually driven out of town by fellow white nationalists who were also slave owners. How atrocious do you have to be run out on a rail by fellow slave owners? And then in the 1840s, there was the case of Dr. Sims, who experimented on Black women and became one of the fathers of modern gynecology. There are still instruments in use today that are named after this man because he invented them, the speculum, for example. And he did experiments on women and conducted operations on Black women, many of them, without anesthesia, because it was thought that, well, Black slaves can't feel pain. Funny how they beat and whipped slaves as a form of punishment, and yet when it came to medical experiments, they were thought to not feel pain. Yeah, that's bullshit. And there's a case of a gene line that is still being used in research based on a Black woman's biological information without her permission or her family's permission. It's still in use. I have a book on it. I don't remember the title now. I haven't got around to reading it yet. But there's a long history of this, medical atrocities committed against the Black community in America on our soil. Now, there have been other cases in the world, in our history, in the modern history, even 20th century, where medical experiments have been committed on people without their permission. Sometimes they're prisoners of war, and those people that committed them, many times, were hung at the end of the war, and in World War II. We put people on trial for that kind of thing, and we hung them. Except for the ones, that were useful to us. Look up Project Paperclip. if you'd like to know what happened when we discovered that they had some really important information that we needed, and we'd really like you to come work for the U.S. government. So we'll give you a pass for having tortured American soldiers if you come work for the U.S. government. Yeah, we did that. There are very few things in America that we can't make worse. But at least we were willing to admit that those people committed, those Japanese researchers committed atrocities against U.S. soldiers, because the vast majority of those U.S. soldiers were white. But how many of you have ever even heard of the black community and the atrocities they suffered on American soil at the hands of the medical field? How many? I know I have known about this for probably 20 years, maybe a little longer, I'm not sure. But it isn't deep knowledge because it isn't readily available. At least it wasn't as available as all the other things that intrigued me over the years. It was talked about, hinted at, little blurbs here and there, but now it's coming to light. Now people are beginning to talk about it. But the statue to Dr. Sims, the man that committed operations on black women without their permission, without anesthesia, his statue didn't come down until 2018. 2018. Black women walking past that statue every single goddamn day. Honoring a man who tortured people. He also came up with some very valuable information. Life's complex. But some things I think we can all agree on. That committing medical atrocities against others is bad. And we should not only face it, we should teach it. These are things that high school students should know about, and definitely college students. This is our history, and we need to teach it. Because to fail is a slap in the face of all those who suffered through it and their descendants. It is a slap in the face to every black person in America today. Their history is our history. Black history is American history. And we need to teach it. We need to know it. We need to honor it.